You probably swipe a card nearly every day,
Oh, absolutely. Multiple times.
and you likely don't give it a second thought. But what if the whole structure of that transaction, how the card's issued, how you're charged, what if it was all meticulously designed?
Designed how? You mean beyond just the tech?
Yeah, designed around, well, profound ethical principles. That's what we're doing a deep dive into today.
Okay, interesting. What's the focus?
It's a specific document, Shari'ah Standard Number 2, debit card and credit card.
Ah, okay, from AAO-IFFI.
Exactly. The Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Financial Institutions, they've laid out really precise frameworks
Right.
for what they call debit cards, charge cards, and credit cards, specifically those three.
Yeah, AAOFI standards are incredibly detailed. It makes sense they'd cover these.
But it makes you wonder why create such detailed ethical blueprints for, everyday plastic.
Well, that really gets to the heart of it.
Oh.
In Islamic finance, every single financial tool, every transaction has to align with Sharia.
The body of Islamic law, right.
Precisely. And AAO-IFI's job is basically to translate those core principles into practical, auditable standards that banks and financial institutions globally can use.
So it provides clarity and trust.
Exactly. Clarity, trust, and a clear framework for compliance. For everyone involved, really, from the institution down to the user.
So it's not just about whether the card works, it's about this deep ethical architecture underneath.
That's a good way to put it.
So, okay, let's take a standard credit card, the kind most people have. The core mechanism is often revolving interest, right?
Usually, yes. That's the model.
How does an AOIFI standard fundamentally sort of re-engineer that relationship? Because interest is a key issue, isn't it?
It absolutely is. That's where you see the principles really shine through. A fundamental principle in Sharia is the prohibition of riba.
Which is often translated as interest.
Right. Or usury. So an AAOIFI compliant credit card just won't function with interest on the outstanding balance in that conventional way.
Okay, so what do they do instead?
Well, there are a few models. It might work on a fee-for-service basis, maybe annual fees, transaction fees, things like that, but not interest that grows on the debt itself. Another quite common structure involves something called tawarruk. It's a kind of deferred sale.
How does that work with a card?
Essentially, the bank facilitates a purchase. They might buy an asset, often commodities on the market, and then sell it to you, the cardholder, at a pre-agreed price that includes their profit margin.
Ah, so you owe the bank for that sale price.
Exactly. And you can pay it back over time, but it's payment on a sale, not repayment of a loan with interest added. It's a fundamental rethink of the credit relationship we're used to.
Wow, that's a completely different underlying contract then.
It really is.
What about the other types mentioned, like a simple debit card or a charge card where you pay in full each month? They seem maybe less complicated from a Sharia view.
They might seem less complicated, but they're absolutely still subject to the same level of scrutiny. Yes.
Why is that? For a debit card, it's just your own money.
True, but the standard ensures its operation doesn't accidentally link to or facilitate something prohibited. Like, maybe the account it draws from isn't invested according to Sharia principles. The standard checks those links.
Okay, that makes sense. And charge cards.
For charge cards, the standard often clarifies the bank's role. They're acting more like a payment agent, perhaps, or facilitating that deferred sale, tawarruk, we mentioned.
Not strictly a lender of money in that moment.
Right. It's a subtle distinction sometimes, but crucial for ensuring every fee, every liability lines up with Sharia principles. It really highlights how financial products aren't just universal things. Yeah. Different traditions approach them very differently.
Yeah. So, okay, stepping back. What does this deep dive really tell us, for you listening? For me, the big takeaway is just realizing that these detailed, principle-based standards exist for things we use constantly.
Yeah.
It shows that even these everyday tools can have these incredible layers of philosophy built into them, layers you might never even suspect.
And it's important to remember where these standards come from. Tying it back to the source document itself.
Good one.
Section 5 explicitly states these standards are rooted directly in Sharia rulings. These aren't just, good ideas somebody had.
They're derived from foundational, legal, and ethical sources.
Precisely. It underscores that deep connection between the practical side of finance and its ethical and religious underpinnings.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? How understanding these underlying frameworks, like these Shari'ah rulings behind the AAO-IFI standards, could actually change how we perceive the financial tools we use every single day. Makes you look at your wallet a bit differently, realize there's potentially a whole lot more going on with those little plastic rectangles than you ever imagined.